Morning. Thank you for your time today over lunch to talk Google Ads. In terms of who I am and myself, I've got a slide on that, so I'll probably end up repeating some of it. But I'm essentially a self-proclaimed Google Ads expert. I run a Google Ads agency called Pleon, and we work with a number of charities and businesses across the UK and the US. We've been doing a lot of work specifically with charities, especially over the last kind of 6 months or so because you're in a different place, really, with access to the Google Ads charity grant, which is great. And it's a nice kind of carrot, I suppose, and dangled in front of you to use. But we found a number of charities have really struggled with that. So we've been putting on a number of workshops helping charities understand why those grants are good, why they don't work, and how to essentially get the most out of them. So I'll fire away. In terms of what we'll cover today, the first thing I'll actually cover is why, more often than not, those charity grants don't work. People sign up for them, they see this big number of $10,000 or whatever that, converts to in pounds, usually about £8,000 a month of free spend. They get it, they're in the Google Ads account and nothing happens, and they're not seeing the results they want. And we'll then talk about how we can make sure we show ads to the right people and get those people to click and engage. And doing those two right will in turn get that charity grant working and doing what you need it to do. In terms of what will happen now, be prepared to be overwhelmed with Google Ads content. I will desperately try and avoid too much Google Ads jargon and all of that kind of boring stuff. We'll try and keep it fun, keep it interactive. If you've got any questions, I'm sure Mushka will be handling the chat, but I'll either get to them, I suppose, at the end, or if it makes sense, I might say we've got a slide on that in a minute. It's usually an answer. But what I've also done as well is set up at the end. So we're giving away 10 free one-to-one, 1 hour sessions with myself and potentially a member of our team, depending on what your questions are, where we'll give you a more specific, bespoke look at your Google Ads. You can apply for those at the end, and I think Mishka sends out some links as well. So we won't leave you hanging or leave any key information behind a paywall. In terms of us, I know I've already covered some of this, but Google Ads expert, self-proclaimed. I don't think anyone can officially give you that title just yet. But Google Ads is everything and all that we do. A lot is changing in Google Ads. Of course, we've got to mention AI if we talk anything digital marketing, but a lot's changing in ads, new features available for businesses and charities. And so we really just want to help and avoid hiding any of that behind Google's jargon and a paywall. So let's get going. Firstly, just before we get into how to use the Google Ads grant, I thought it would be good just to include a refresher of what actually is the Google Ads grant. So businesses pay when someone clicks on one of their Google ads. It can cost them anything from 10 pence per click to sometimes £100 or more per click, depending on the industry. But charities are able to apply for a Google Ads charity grant where you get up to $10,000 per month in free clicks. So you just don't pay anything. It's honestly got like a really cool section where the billing usually is, where it just says we don't charge you anything, which is nice to see. But what we generally find is, as I said, charities struggle to use that money. And I will say, just as a kind of caveat, we've never come across an account that uses anywhere near the £8,000 a month. That's like a big high number that sounds really impressive and I'm sure looks great on Google's, CSR spreadsheets and documents. But generally speaking, we don't find too many use those, even if it's done particularly effectively. I won't talk anymore really about how to apply for that. I know there might be some questions about that on the end. I have prepared the link that I can forward in as to where you apply for that with Google, but it's done directly with Google. It's a relatively straightforward process, and pretty much you just need a registered charity number and not be in one of their kind of blacklisted niches or sectors, which I'm sure none of you are. So it's relatively simple to do. The problem is it's too good to be true. That's what we definitely find with this Google Ads grant. As I said, they dangle that kind of carrot in front of you, but charities just don't get that ads to show. And in our eyes, that means that those grants go to waste. That is an opportunity and they're not being used effectively. So our goal of this session is to help fix that for you. And the key to fixing and getting any Google Ads account to work, really, whether it's a business account or a charity account, is you need to make Google look good so that they will give you that free money. So how do we make them look good? Google wants and needs relevant and engaging content to be shown to people that Google. That is the key. That is what Google is looking to offer. And it's becoming even more heightened now that basically for the first time ever, Google Ads, well, Google as a whole has a competitor. Like for some time, people have been using Microsoft Ads, but at a 5-10% hit rate. ChatGPT is now making inroads onto Google Ads. And one of the reasons for that is because Google results are generally less relevant than what you can find in ChatGPT. So that drive to show relevant content to the people that search on Google is becoming more important to them. So if we can be relevant and do what Google want and make Google look good, they will show your ads. They will show your charity ads. And there's a kind of real framework that we work through, and you'll see as we go through this that we follow that kind of methodology. But the key is being relevant at the first port of call, then showing ads that people want to click to great pages that they want to engage with. And then you need to tell Google that you want more of those type of people, and then they'll show you the ads. So we'll break that down really into the kind of relevancy section and the engaging section. Boom. So firstly, being relevant. This primarily all comes down to keywords. So this bit is a little bit of Google Ads jargon, but over here on the right, we've got standard keywords. So if your keyword in your Google Ads account was skinny jeans, you would be eligible to appear for all of those search queries there on the left under 7 skinny jeans, juniors, that type of thing. The key on any successful Google Ads campaign initially is to make sure you know what your keywords are, and you can research those in a number of fashions. The best place to research them is directly within Google Ads. There's the Google Ads Keyword Planner. I've got some screenshots of that in some future slides. And you can go in there, you can give it an idea, and it will then list all of the other keywords within that you could look to appear for. And there's thousands of keywords available for a range of charities. There's specific people looking to volunteer in areas, donate, they're looking for support, guidance, events. It can all be broken down into keywords. And the key thing with all of those thousands or tens of thousands of keywords that you could be interested in is breaking them down into buckets so that you can be relevant. And this keyword bucket system is fundamental to pretty much every one of these workshops that we run, is that you need to work through this process of researching keywords and putting them into certain buckets. Generally, we recommend going down this route of what you are, where you are, how you support, how to get involved, and what you sell. And by breaking down those keywords into buckets, you can then show that one bucket of keywords, really relevant adverts, and take them to really relevant landing pages. And that's how you guarantee relevance throughout the course. If you, for example, target the keyword of volunteer near me, and actually what appears is Mining Museum, Yorkshire, because you've got those buckets mixed up, you're not going to be relevant. But if someone searches for volunteer near me and the advert you show them is specifically about volunteering and why they should volunteer with you, and then you take them through to a landing page that's specifically about volunteering, you're going to be relevant. As we'll talk about in the next section, you're more likely to be engaging. And that is exactly what Google wants. So we have done a number of these workshops. I did one this morning too. So if my voice goes, that'll be why, where we covered all of these buckets. I'm just really going to focus on the get involved side of things today, based on the fact that Volunteero have kindly invited us here today. But if we go down the route of the one-to-one, and that's something you're interested in signing up for, we can talk about that in more detail. I also included in there a link to our newsletter where we'll advertise more workshops where we'll potentially talk about some of these more specifically or in more detail. So let's kind of move on generally and talk more about the get involved bucket. And that's about using ads to recruit volunteers. It's easier than you think. There are huge amounts of searches, huge numbers of searches for people specifically looking to volunteer. You don't have to kind of massage that too much or really kind of go too deep in the keyword research there. And this is for the UK here. There's over tens of thousands of searches every month for people looking volunteer near me, volunteer opportunities, volunteer services, volunteer activities. So actually the relevancy side of it is really easy for this section. The relevancy side should be kind of bread and butter in terms of ad copy and landing pages. The challenge is because there's so many people searching for it, there will be a lot of charities trying to appear for it too. And in essence, you're all competing against each other to some extent on this call and other charities not on this call. And so we need to help you be more engaging so that people click on your ad compared to your competitors. And the key side to that really is selling volunteering with you. And that's kind of the methodology here is sell why they should volunteer with you. And a great example of this is a charity we've done some work with. They came to one of our workshops earlier in the year called Nature Through Nurture. So their mission is to grow and supply food banks with fresh fruit and vegetables that they grow at their allotments. Their volunteer opportunity that they were looking for people to sign up for was come along on a Sunday for 4 hours and help us in our allotments. And as part of that, you could help learn cultivation, gardening, get outdoors, learn new skills, meet new people. This is pretty much the carbon copy, perfect volunteer opportunity that you can sell. And that and will continue to be so successful for Google Ads because rather than showing someone an ad that says volunteer here, you can say volunteer and learn new skills, learn how to propagate, learn how to garden. It's an easier message to sell. And so what I would recommend for anyone here from all kind of walks of life and different charities is firstly look at what you do offer and why would people want to volunteer with you based on what you already offer. And secondly, I would say don't be scared to look at what could you offer that makes volunteering with you more appealing. Is there a way that you can slightly reposition what you do already do or what you do already offer, which will make it more of an enticing lead magnet to get volunteers into your database and your general network? So how can we be more engaging? As a whole, we break this down again into kind of 4 lists. I do like a list. We target them with super relevant traffic, and I'll talk about what super relevant traffic looks like in the next slide. We make great ads that gets clicks. We build engaging landing pages, and we tell Google we want more. So what's super relevant content? Super relevant keywords. So standard relevant keywords in this case were people looking for volunteer near me. You can be relevant to that. You'll show them a volunteer ad. But what you'll actually find is when the market for general volunteer searches is so big, you can dig down into some of those smaller search volume keywords and find a niche that might be relevant for you. And you can do that within the Google Keyword Planner by searching for volunteer with, volunteer in, volunteer for, volunteer at. And from there, you will see, and this is just a screenshot of just some of the examples, but there'll be so many more down here. You can see already that there's volunteer in animal shelters, volunteer in mental health, volunteer in care homes. We've got the Samaritans, St. John's Ambulance, the RSPCA. Animals is probably quite a good example that I'll probably fall back on as we talk through here. But that's how you can be super relevant, is that rather than just getting people to see an ad that generally talks about volunteering with you and why that would be great, if they're specifically looking to volunteer with animals, then you can show them a relevant ad specifically talking about why and how great it is to volunteer with animals, which is specifically what you do, and then takes them to a landing page that really leans onto the emotional reasons and the benefits that specifically they would be looking for by volunteering with animals. And you can be incredibly relevant by going down that niche focus. And that goes back again to what I was saying on that last slide of potentially look at some of this keyword data and consider whether there's a way that you can almost create more of a volunteer type lead magnet or initial way to get people through the door based on what people are searching for. I'm not saying, go and buy a petting zoo and have a load of animals to volunteer with on a Sunday afternoon, but I know that there's lots of different charities here from lots of different walks of life. And by really doing the keyword research, you might find something in here that's getting 500 searches a month, which is not much more work for you to do to slightly change your kind of volunteer offer. And then you're actually utilizing this Google Ads grant because you'll be able to show Google super relevant content. I did put the example on here of Christmas Day as another one because that is in theory something that would be general for everyone to some capacity. Um, I'm sure it's going to be good fun finding people to run a volunteer kind of scheme on Christmas Day, but there are big search volumes for that. There's a lot of people specifically around that time of year that are looking to volunteer on Christmas Day, and I'm sure every one of these businesses, whether it's sorry, I lost my slides, whether it's care homes, whether it's animal shelters, could be looking for people at Christmas Day, and that's a specific time where you could be really relevant and start to drive people through. I did put a PS there at the bottom. This doesn't mean to completely turn away from the generic volunteer near me type searches, but this can really be your cherry on top where you can be really relevant to what people are actually looking for. So once we found that super relevant audience, then we need to make great ads. And these are generally great ads that are going to get clicks, and that's exactly what Google wants. The challenge that a lot of businesses do, this isn't just for charities, we audit lots of accounts, but most ads are really boring. They often just say what the business is, just say the business's name, not necessarily what it does or why you should want to click and why you should want to speak to them. So that is what I would generally kind of suggest looking at is moving away from just saying what you are, but more talking to the emotional side of things and encouraging people to click and stand out. And then from there, they're far more likely to come through to your website. From that, you will see that the before and after of what a good ad looks like and a bad ad looks like. And you can see why that is far more likely to generate clicks. So this is an example here of the National Coal Mining Museum who came along to one of our previous workshops. They were looking to appear for volunteer near me keywords as a whole, relatively kind of standard relevant keywords. But like a lot of businesses and charities, the ad copy they had was volunteer with us, local volunteer opportunities, sign up here. But what we then did is worked on them to create more content that's specifically relevant to them and calls out on the emotional nature of what they do and the type of people they're talking to. So you can see on the right here, we had keep mining history alive, love history, volunteer here, celebrate Yorkshire's history. Just something that's more unique than the kind of copy and pasted ad copy that we see on a lot of accounts that Google pretty much encourages people to do when you create an account. But the problem with all of that is building ads is hard and takes quite a lot of time. And some of us might not quite have that creative edge. So what we did, and this is a readily available tool for all of you to use, you can search for this within ChatGPT now, is a charity ad engine, where what you can do is use that tool and it will ask you a number of questions and it will help understand your charity, the specific offer that you are looking to do, why you are unique, why people would want to volunteer with you, and it will come back to you with headlines, descriptions, content ideas, and themes, and it will do that legwork for you essentially. And going back through this, we use that tool to generate these unique pieces of content for the National Coal Mining Museum. So don't be scared if you're not a creative person or not a content creator or something along those lines. This tool can really help, and we've seen a lot of people using it. I think it can be really, really helpful just to be a bit more unique and a bit more different. And similar can be said for the landing pages. That is going to be absolutely key. And if you think about it, and one of the questions we had on the seminar earlier was how important is the landing page? The worst thing Google can do, and the one thing Google is looking to avoid doing, is sending people to bad websites because that makes Google look really bad. And that is honestly why we think ChatGPT is making some real inroads on Google's monopoly, is because you can get really, really relevant recommendations on ChatGPT that you can't get through Google yet. And the landing pages are genuinely, for most businesses that we work with, more important than the Google ads. There's not too much really of a kind of secret sauce behind the Google ads. You know, you'll get the people online that say, try this tip, try this hack. But generally speaking, it's the fundamentals that work. But the landing pages are what can take you over the top. And it's why one of our, I was actually our second hire with the business was a full landing page designer, because we felt like we just had to bring that resource in-house so that we could do that for clients too. And as a whole, I say I would recommend really looking at the landing pages more, if not like 2 times more than you look at the Google Ads campaigns itself, because Google is punishing poor landing pages and just not showing them. It doesn't mind as much for businesses because they still get the money when Google still gets the money when someone clicks. But for charities, you have to earn the right to get that free money from Google. You have to jump through the hoops that Google is giving you to use that free money. And if one of your competitors has a more engaging landing page than you, they will show the competitors' ads. ChatGPT or any AI can't fully build landing pages yet. I think we're probably very far away from that, to be honest. But as of now, they can't build landing pages. But again, what we've done is built a custom GPT that you can all have access to that will help you develop the content that you put on these landing pages that makes them as engaging as possible and encourages people to inquire or get in touch with you. And similar to the charity ad engine, it will ask you questions to help you write that content. And as an example of a great landing page, if we say so ourselves, is one we recently put together for one of the workshops we were running. And these are the frameworks that we trained that AI on, and we use on every landing page we build for clients, whatever the sector is. It's a really clear headline right at the top saying specifically what you do. You don't want people to have to scroll and find out whether you're the right person for them. It's ease of engagement. So not having 5 different calls to action of sign up for a newsletter, call here, email this, book a consultation, speak to chat. Generally speaking, one key call to action. So this one was just book your spot for the webinar. Then we had a secondary one if people couldn't make the webinar, they could sign up for the newsletter. We handled objections, and so we will have a FAQ section and a is this for you section. Both of those are perfect because they allow you to show your audience that you are for them. Obviously, is this for you is quite on the nose, it's quite clear. But the frequently asked questions is really useful too, because if you preemptively ask questions that they would have asked, it shows you really know the audience and they're more likely to engage with you. Some form of urgency and desire is absolutely perfect. So we used a countdown timer on this page, limited spots available, obviously some kind of pricing promotion. If you've ever tried to buy a flight from Ryanair, I think we'll all know how good they are at the urgency side of things. You feel like the plane's about to take off if you don't book your seat within a minute. And social proof as well. So showing people like them who have already engaged and signed up. So to an extent, it almost makes them feel like they're either missing out or they're seeing other people like them already enjoying this experience to some capacity. So logos are good, testimonials are great, video testimonials are even better. That would be the next thing we'd improve on our own landing page is video testimonials to make it as clear and engaging as possible for people to see that you are the right landing page for them to sign up with. And then the final step, bringing this all together, is telling Google you want more, basically. So Google is brilliant. And the main way that there are businesses that are spending 10, 20, 30, 50,000 pounds a month on Google Ads is because the more data you give Google, the more information you tell it of the type of customers you want, it will get you more of them. If someone comes to your site and fills out a lead form and Google knows that that person filled out a lead form, then it will learn over time to say, okay, women between 40 and 50 are more likely to fill out a lead form than men under 25. So we'll show it more to that demographic. Or we'll show less on mobile phone, more on computers. We'll spend more at the weekend compared to the weekdays. It will learn and develop, improve over time. But conversely, if you don't have conversion tracking in place, if you aren't telling Google that you've had a positive action that you want, it can't learn and your accounts won't work. From a business client perspective, we won't let them spend a penny on ads with us until the conversion tracking is in place because they need to know if it's working. And more importantly, Google needs to know if it's working. But again, the problem with conversion tracking is it's really hard and very technical to do. Our first hire was a conversion tracking specialist. I, for a number of years, tried to learn it myself, myself. I could do the basics, thing would break, I wouldn't know how to fix it. There are people out there, freelancers from around the world, that will do this for £100 as a general ballpark for a charity or business. You can send them a pretty standard brief to say, set up my Google Ads conversion tracking for lead forms, phone calls, general, kind of standard stuff. And they're tried and tested and reviewed. I know sometimes people think Fiverr is a scam or something along those lines, but there's people on there with tens of thousands of reviews for setting up Google Ads conversion tracking. My personal view is they're more trusted than some guy you meet down the pub. That would be the place I would recommend going for this conversion tracking side of things. I do have a video available that explains more about what conversion tracking is. It doesn't tell you how to do it, but it gives you a bit more context on what it is and why it's important, how Google uses that data. So we can maybe have a chat of how we can send that out. And another top tip when it comes to conversion tracking is tracking emails is rubbish, basically. If you have an email address on your landing page and you say, here's our email address, drop us an email and see if you want to volunteer with us, you will never be able to track that, even with the best conversion tracking specialists in the world. You can maybe track people clicking on the link if they're on a mobile and it opens up their email feed, but you can't track those clicks. So I would strongly recommend moving away from that and getting people to fill out a form, because forms are easier to track. And you can also then get a bit more data from people, who they are, what they're after, that type of thing. So top tip from me is get rid of emails, put them in the footer somewhere hidden away and get everyone filling out a form. And so kind of wrapping up that second section there really is, would you want to click your ad? If you were your customer, would you find your ad more engaging and stand out more than the generic ads that we see out there every day? When was your landing page last reviewed? We speak to a lot of charities that have someone who logs into their Google Ads account every week or every month, but haven't touched their landing page in years. So I would say bump that up the priority list. And also then consider who is responsible for your conversion tracking. There are some web agencies that will include that in what you're doing. Sometimes they'll do that for Google Analytics and you have to import it into Google Ads. But I would, again, just kind of make sure that's not a kind of black hole in terms of the responsibilities of this, because you can do all the great Google Ads work, you can have a brilliant landing page, but if your conversion tracking is not working, your campaign will never scale and grow. And that's, I guess, a summary really of everything Google Ads for charities and volunteers in just under 30 minutes. And I've got some notes in here as well. I'm sure there might be some questions. I've seen a few kind of popping up through the chat that we can maybe scroll through. But in terms of what we covered, is why understanding, I think, why the Google Ads grant doesn't work can actually help you kind of rearrange campaigns so you can make it work for you in the future. And really that is about being relevant by matching specific keywords with ads and landing pages, and then making engaging ads and landing pages too, and just not forgetting about the conversion tracking within all of that. And as I promised here, there's a sign up link for the one-to-one strategy calls. We have conducted these calls with a number of charities that have come onto some of our workshops over the last few months. And what we will do on those is discuss all use cases of your Google Ads grant, so we can talk about those other keyword buckets outside the volunteering, if that's more relevant to you than the volunteer side right now. We've gone into accounts and reviewed them then and there, so audited them, turned stuff off, tweak things, change things, and given those marketing teams a bit more of a kind of roadmap of what we would recommend they do next moving forward. And we also have a Google Ads playbook, or charity ads playbook, where basically we put as much information as we can onto one Google sheet that you've got. So you get the meter and recording, video guides, tips, tricks, that type of thing. And we're happy to kind of offer those. I'm going to keep those applications open until 5 p.m. on Friday. And then what we'll do is kind of let people know if we're able to offer a spot. I know I say 10 on there. If 11 people apply, I'm not going to look at one charity and say, no, sorry, tough luck. But we do have a bit of a kind of limit on how many sessions we're able to offer for free. But even if you're not able to secure a spot through that, we'll send you a custom video where I'll look through your charity and your website and maybe make some recommendations of, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? and we can go from there. But yeah, there we go. I'll keep that kind of link on there if anyone does want to scan that and sign that, sign up there. And I guess I'll look through some of these questions, Mishka, unless there's any kind of questions you have specifically as well. I feel there was a few falling through here as I was
There were no questions,
going along.
introductions of who they are, but I was very impressed with that. Thank you very much, Tom. I feel like you started off strong saying you're the king of Google ads, and I was like, oh, that's a strong statement. But I think after that presentation, I think you can claim that title. So really appreciate it. Alona was saying that she works with the local NGOs and is in charge of finding foreign volunteers who can join our speaking clubs for youth. What bucket do you think, because you mentioned your bucket, when you're looking for like international volunteers, specific languages, is there anything specific you should be putting if you're recruiting volunteers?
That's a really interesting one. Is it a specific language or is it a range? Is
Alona?
anyone who's bilingual? Bilingual.
No, she's I think I know that she's based in Ukraine because I've chatted to her before.
Oh,
I think they're mainly English speaking, I think.
okay. I would say within the volunteer sphere specifically, definitely just really dig into that keyword data. If you put a volunteer in there, I think it's close to 10,000 different keywords you can kind of scroll through, and they do have some filters to help you. So I would say really look into that keyword data.
Yeah.
And then we did do some work, I can scan back through here. There we go. So this support side of things is quite helpful too. So rather than targeting people specifically looking to get involved in your charity, using content to educate them on what your charity offers and then using that as a way to get them to sign up as a volunteer can be really useful. So an example of that is the National Dance Company of Wales. So they had a Dance for Parkinson's initiative that they were running. No one is searching for Dance for Parkinson's, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there's huge amounts of people searching for exercises for people living with Parkinson's, massive search volume. So what we've suggested there is they build out blogs, and they already have some blogs that include exercises specifically for people with Parkinson's. And that blog, by chance, all of those exercises would be dance moves. So then you're educating people on the benefits of dance for Parkinson's. And at the bottom of the page, you say, now you've read this blog, just so you know, we have a Dance for Parkinson's workshop available. So it's a very long-winded answer for what you asked. But for that specific charity, if you are struggling to find niche keywords within the get involved side of things, I would consider looking at the support bucket and see if there are areas that people are looking to learn about that you could then educate them on through blogs and then use the Google ads to boost the blogs further up. And that way you can still get people through to the website.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Does anyone have any questions for Tom? Are you seeing a bigger trend in people using ChatGPT rather than Google at the moment? And is that going to,
Yeah.
because I know obviously you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I've got some LinkedIn posts going out about that over the next few weeks too. There are definitely more people using it to learn than Google. And so I would say if I was someone running SEO for Google, I'd be concerned really on that trend. I think we used to go to Google to learn. Now people are going to ChatGPT. They are releasing services now within ChatGPT. They announced a partnership with Shopify yesterday, where you can go there to shop for products and directly go from ChatGPT through to websites to buy. So there will be some movement there too. My overriding feeling, and I was speaking with some marketers yesterday about this, is that soon ChatGPT will include ads. You would
Ah,
have to presume at some point that has to happen. And that will be when it's really interesting as to how whether you can compare like for like. I'm kind of at a stage now, if I'm looking for something complex, so like a software system, I do all my research in ChatGPT.
ah.
And then when I know the one I want, I'll go to Google to buy it because you know you'll get the company website and off you go. So people are definitely using it. It's a really interesting time. Google's never had any competition in this space at all. So yeah, it's an interesting one to keep an eye of. Because the moment ads are available on that, I think it'll be a bit of a scramble of us in the Google Ads world to try and learn that and master that as well.
Brilliant. And when you are dealing with charity, because obviously, majority of people on this call are working directly with volunteers and volunteer managers. In your experience working with charities, who is the person who takes ownership of the Google ads?
So almost everyone we've spoken to has been marketing manager,
Okay.
generally speaking. And almost always, and I asked this question on that form if anyone signed up for that, there'll be a marketing manager who is wearing lots of hats,
Yeah.
generally speaking. They're trying to do lots of different things within the charity. And Google Ads just kind of falls through the cracks. They often have a willingness to make changes and improve, but don't really know where to start or don't really have a kind of methodology on what to do. And so that's where we try to help with that. But generally speaking, I would say it's marketing managers.
So it will be the people on this call going to their marketing managers or CEOs or anyone and saying, I've attended this webinar. I think, this is a great avenue to recruit volunteers. And then hopefully they can get one of your 1 hour sessions, I hope.
Sure. Yeah, and absolutely in one of those 1 hour sessions, we can set up a standard campaign, which would be that bucket for volunteers, because every charity on here, in theory, should target the volunteer near me or volunteer opportunities
Yeah.
keyword. It would be relatively similar for everyone to do. Um, and then we can give you the tools there to access to create the ads and the landing pages. And sorry, just to draw that on there, Pip, on how do you access and use the ChatGPT tools you referred to. So if you're within ChatGPT, there'll be a section on there called Explore GPTs, which is where you can find the other essentially other GPTs other than the standard one everyone uses. So if you go to that Explore area and then search for one of the names we use there. So I can put them in the chat specifically, the names of the ones we have. We've got the Pleon, yeah, the
Oh, you got like Canva on it as well.
yeah,
It's
there's loads. Yeah, I mean, I was guilty of just using standard Chat GPT one, but there's thousands in there.
I mean, it's amazing what's at our fingertips at the moment. Um,
Hmm.
very impressive, can be a bit scary. Um, oh, thank you for that. So I think we're going to do breakout rooms so everyone can chat amongst themselves about things they've learned at this session and introduce themselves and hopefully network with some other individuals. We will I will send, I mean, if everyone could use that QR code now, but I know that it's recording and we'll be sending out this recording to the other people that signed up. So I will add this all in our follow-up email with the link and any other, are we attaching the slides, Tom, as well?
Yeah, more than
Yeah,
welcome to.
thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah, I
appreciate
can
it.
send
And
those.
yeah, and anything else, all relevant articles we will put in it. But thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate it. I'm going to just put everyone in a breakout room now. Let's just do that.
And I can join that.